Concept 2 rower video, and we're going to use this machine here, and we're going to sort out the chain. The chain is too slack, so when the chain comes out and goes back in, we get a big sort of bow wave of chain here, and we can fix that by retensioning the bungee. We're also going to go through the process of taking the chain out and reinstalling it. So first thing is then, let's split the machine in half there, so let's undo that joint and separate into two. And then we'll flip over the front part. I think with that, Ross, you can just lift that up. So if you sort of pull it upwards, actually, I'll show you. This one's got a cam underneath. If I video that, there we are. So we need to move that. Release that, that's it, and now you should be able to split it. And it's a little counterintuitive, so as you pull it up, and that's it. That separates it in two, and the reason we need to do that is because we need to turn this front bit over. So to protect the console head, we're just going to flop that back, tuck it under there, and then we're going to rotate the whole thing so we can see underneath. That's it. And first thing to do is get some gloves on, because this is going to be quite messy and dirty. So we'll get some gloves out from the toolkit. Let's pull that round. And then we're going to remove this plastic chain guard here. So that's just going to slide off all the way towards the back. This will be an Imperial machine. Don't need any tools for that, that just clips on. Okay. That's it. Slide it all the way off. That's it. We'll flip it over just to keep the grease off the gym floor. There we go. And now we can now see the chain and the bungee. So the black bungee cord is this one here. Yeah. So that's what we're going to tighten ultimately. Yeah. And this is where the chain is connected. So inside here you can see there's two little brackets, and they connect onto the axle that runs across there. So everything sort of starts and finishes at this end. So what we need to do is unclip those brackets and unclip the bracket there. And before we do that, just have a quick visual look down here, because at the moment you can see everything's lined up. So the chains are lined up, the bungee's lined up, nothing's crossed over all the way to the top here. And this is what we're trying to get back to. So when we reinstall it, what we'll be looking for is for everything to be nice and straight and in line, nothing crossed over. That's the end point. So to start with then, unhook the clip there. It literally just hooks around that axle. So sort of push it in and unhook it. That's it. And the same with the one that's on your side, just there. It might hook around the other way. Sometimes they're opposite. One hooks over and one hooks under.
Yeah, this hooks over. I'm just trying to clear it. There we go.
That's it. Lovely. Okay. And what we will do, let's take the bungee out completely. So if you unhook one of the brackets, it can be either one. But if you detach it from one end of the bungee, then we'll pull the bungee out completely. And we'll put that back in as well. Okay. Now what you could do, obviously we've got another machine here that we can follow if we get stuck. Not that we will, but if you when you do this on your own, it
Yeah.
can be a bit tricky. So just pull out the bungee and just sort of make a mental note of where it's going and where it's coming from, just for future reference.
Under, over, touch the structure chain. So it would come under, over,
That's it.
yeah.
Then we got this centre thing is in the middle up, so that's just where the chain is attached to.
Yeah.
So that kind of sits in the middle of the bungee cord.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is let's detach it from that as well. Let's go right back to basics. Lovely. Okay, and let's unthread the last of it.
Then it goes across, actually goes across from that to there and then just then back up.
Okay, yep, and then just pull that all the way out. So if you ever needed to change the bungee, obviously the old one's got to come out completely, and goes right over to the top pulley over there. That's it. Great job. Okay. So that's the bungee out. So let's turn our attention to the chain now. So the chain is terminated on this block here, and it's terminated there at that. Oops, at that joint there. Look. And there's two little sort of fingers, they're kind of Z shape. And what we need to do is undo that nut and the bolt there, and take the screw out, and then we'll be able to sort of slide the fingers out from the end of the chain. That's great, and pull that screw out. That's it. Then we can see the end of the chain there, and there's two fingers. And they're you kind of almost have to sort of slide them kind of between your fingers to separate them off the chain. It's a bit of it's a weird kind of design, but really quite effective and neat. And sometimes they're a bit stuck together as well, especially if they've not been off for a few years, like on this machine. So it might be a little spray with Brunox might help, but basically you're trying to sort of slide them across each other, and they should come off. Do you see what I mean, Ross? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
So I'm pushing this.
Yeah.
Up that way.
Can you see where those See where those fingers are? So this top one that's on the top here, that's got to go that way.
Right.
Follow the diagonals, and the one underneath goes the opposite way.
Right.
That's it, you've got it. So let's say it's a little bit counterintuitive the first time you do it, but that's it. Okay, so put those to one side. We'll reuse those. We'll give them a bit of a clean up in a minute. And what we're going to do now is withdraw the chain completely. So this is now going to unthread through the top pulley, which is up here. It's going to come back through, round, unthread through this one, and then back out through the hole and take it round to what would usually be the top of the machine, and around to the handle. Okay, yep, and then what you so where the blue handle is, if you pull now the blue handle out and start to pull it all the way through and over the sprocket. The sprocket is a little, it's the gear which is underneath there. I can't quite see it on the video, but there it is. So that's pulling the chain out through to the out to the frame. Great, so that's the chain the handle, bungee completely out. So at this point, ordinarily what you do, you then fit your new chain, being careful to make sure you get your phosphor bronze bush fitted, so that comes as a separate piece, but it's really critical that gets fitted.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll start to pull, the handle will pull through the silver bit.
Yeah.
And then reassembling it. Now, the reassembly is obviously the tricky part. So the hardest part is the first bit, I find. It's when you're trying to thread the chain back through over that sprocket. So what we're going to do, I'll show you what I do, and then when you do it, you might find there's an easier way, and if there is, let me know. But we'll flip the machine back over, back to its normal way.
Yeah.
And that'll allow us to make use of gravity. Okay, and let's pull that back over. And what we're going to need to do is to take off this cap here, because we're going to need to see where the sprocket is underneath that little cap. So let's pull that down. So Phillips number 2. So this is the speed sensor.
Okay.
So again, on these models, basically the Model Ds and Es, anything in the last sort of 15 years really has had this type of speed sensor. It's an electronic device, ultra reliable. The old machines used to have a magnetic switch, which was a little bit problematic, but don't see so many of those machines anymore. So we were looking at the Precore treadmill earlier. We talked about the speed sensor on that. It's like a Hall effect, called a Hall effect device. Basically, it detects when you put something metal in front of it, it detects it and sends a signal.
Right.
And this is the same kind of principle. That's it. I think they're out. It's just a little bit tricky. There we are. That's it. So under here, can I get light on this? No, it's because I'm video and I can't. Inside there's a little ring which is attached to the inside of the fan. and this is the sensor, and basically, as the ring rotates, it detects the speed signal. So rarely get any problems with these, but you can have cable issues. Obviously, that can get quite easily damaged. So you can replace this electronic module rather than the entire plastic thing. Anyway, the bit we want is the sprocket in there. So what you've got to do is feed the chain, the end of the chain, back up through this square bit, and then you've got to, with your fingers, sort of manipulate it over the sprocket. And this is where it gets tricky, because gravity wants to put it the wrong way over the sprocket, and you've got to somehow
So
get it to
want to
go
get
over.
it to go over.
It's got it to get it to go over the top of the sprocket,
Yeah.
and then it will come dangling down the machine here, and when we get enough of the chain dangling through, then we'll flip it back over. I think I've used a cable tie as well at some point in the past, I seem to remember. You can feed the end of a cable tie up through the end of the chain. That sometimes helps, but most of the time I don't bother. It's just getting that technique really. Also, if you find there's not enough room, we can take the speed sensor out completely, and that obviously gives you much more room. So you're always sort of trading off how much to strip down to do the job versus the time that you've got, really, especially if you're doing this professionally.
So this would just be in the case that it would need some sort of new, it'd need a new chain, basically. That's what.
Yeah. Yeah, if you need a new chain, this is what you do. So the way that the chains fail, often it's normally through abuse. You know, people will sort of bend the chain left and right, and it will be kinked excessively. I mean, they can stretch as well. So if it starts to jump out of the sprocket, for example, sometimes it will need a new chain. Particularly on the black models, the grey ones, in my opinion, seem to be a better build quality than the black ones.
Really?
The black ones seem to be more problematic. So whether there's been like a cost exercise gone on at Concept 2 to make them more competitive, I don't know, but that's just an opinion. How are you getting on? So what I'm thinking is, let's take that speed sensor bracket off the plastic bit, because it will give us a load more room, unless you think you've done it.
Definitely on.
No good?
It's definitely on. It's just trying to get it through.
It looks like it's bunched up. You see it, I can see it from this end, it's bunched up. So.
Oh yeah. So it was nowhere near.
No.
What I thought was going on.
Yeah. So, I'll tell you what then. Let's do that. Let's get that chain off, the sensor off. So
One more go.
you want one more go? Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, nice one. Well done.
And is it going in now back straight towards you,
Yeah.
or is it kind of going over the thing first?
No, it's got to go down and back.
In between?
Yeah, in between.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's great. So if we flip it back over now then, and let's have a look from the other side again. So hang on to that chain. Make sure it doesn't drop back through. And also flip that down for safety. That's it. Good. Okay, excellent. So now we've got the chain around the sprocket. That's underneath here. So the sprocket, because it's so dark, we can't really see it, but it's under the chain there.
Yeah.
And we've gone underneath between the sprocket and this wheel.
Yeah.
And we're going to come back right down the machine. And we're going to go back to that bracket, that central bracket, which is behind. That's the one. Okay, and now the root of the chain, it's going to come around the bottom of the wheel, over, back up, back underneath this wheel, back over this wheel, and then back down to the same bracket, and it's going to terminate on that bracket. Have you got that?
I think so. Through here. So it's going to go under
Under. That's it.
and then back through.
Yeah. And then all the way back up to the other wheel. There. Going to go under that wheel.
Back over to link to.
That's it, and back over. And then it's going to go back around and terminate again with those fingers onto that bracket.
Right.
So what you've got to do is, if you separate those two fingers, because they need to oppose each other.
Yeah.
That's
So
it.
they're like.
Yeah, so if you slide one in first and then slide the other on top afterwards, otherwise you're getting a bit of a muddle, if you like me.
So that's going on like that.
Yeah, that's it. And then the other one goes on the opposite direction, but just the same. That's it. Back one link.
Have I gone too far on both?
No, that's okay. The first one's fine. The second one, you need to go back another link to match it up. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Okay, and then you're back to where you were, and then that can then go through the screw and the nut and the screw to that bracket. And it's a little nylock nut, that is, so there's a little plastic insert on the end, so it's designed to not vibrate off. So what that means is you really only need to put it on a few turns. You don't need to. Right. It doesn't need to be really tight.
Or just...
That'll do. Yep, that's it. And then if you sort of pull that back here to where it's going to be and just check the chain, chain should be nice and parallel. Shouldn't be crossed over, there shouldn't be twisted. Should be sitting nicely over the pulleys. That looks great to me. Yep, that's it. So that's the chain bit done. Awesome job. We can sort the king side on the other end later.
Okay, and that's not too slack there, no?
No, well, we've got to get the bungee on yet, so the bungee will give us the tension.
Right.
So that will take care of all that.
So that's what we're
That's it.
movement there. Yeah. So where would that come around? Where them two?
Somewhere where you, roughly where you are there. That's the finished position. Good. So have we missed anything? I don't think we have. Nope, all looking good. So let's get the bungee in next then. So ordinarily you change the bungee, so you put the bracket on one end. The brackets are sometimes handed and sometimes they're not. Depends on which model you have. So if we look at these by handed, I mean that if we hold them up the same way, if they're handed, then they're different, and these aren't handed, they're identical. And there's no marks for right and left. So in other words, you can put any bracket on whichever end and start off with that.
Okay.
The other end, the free end you've got there, what I suggest is feed it under there. And what we've got to try and do is make sure that we're going where it looks natural for the bungee to go. That's the key to it, really. So at this point, I think we're going to go all the way. Now, let's be guided by what we've got here. So on this one, I think what we need to do is start over the other side, because we've got a hole there and a hole here. So what we're going to want to do is to put the bungee in from the top, because, naturally the bungee is going to want to go on the top there, right, and they're going to want to come out on this side.
Right, so we'll start on the opposite.
So so let's start on the opposite side.
Which means I'll be going...
Hang on a minute, let me just think this through. It's difficult videoing and thinking all at the same time. So if we go under there, we're going to come round. Actually, no, I think you were right to start with.
Yeah, I remember from the last bit, it was kind of like came up and then it crossed over.
Yeah, so I think what we need to do, if we start in that position, let's get the video on it so we can see. So if we start in that position, then the other end of that you're going to feed up here. So let's just work through this logic together.
Yeah.
It's going to go underneath the top pulley over there. Then it's going to come over the top. Then it's going to come all the way back down. Then it's going to go underneath. Oops. Then it's going to go underneath this pulley and back over this pulley. Ah, no, that's wrong. You see, that's wrong. Let's just do it anyway so we can see. So let's feed that up then, because it's easier to show you what I'm talking about than try and explain it. That's it. It goes underneath all that. Then we've got to go underneath that end pulley. You might need to take the end cap off, because I don't think you'll get it round otherwise. So with that screw, if you need to undo that screw kind of almost all the way, but there's actually a little sort of hook bracket on, so we just need to undo it enough to be able to unhook the bracket. Bit more. Keep going. Yeah, that'll do it. So if you give that a jiggle, you should be able to unhook the bracket. Let's get that. No, you'll have to undo it just a bit more. Is that?
Cheers. Thanks, Mark.
It's that little blue bracket on this machine we're just trying to get off so we can get the end cap off. That's it, that's off now. Yeah, good. So that allows you to see the other side of the pulley, so that makes threading the cord much easier. That's it, back over the top, and then back over the top of that, underneath the bracket there. Oh no, I think we're right. The logic is right. Then we're going to go over the top of this wheel and then underneath. Then, as if by magic,
You're going to go through.
we're going to go through the bottom hole, which is actually on the right, the correct side. You see what I mean? That's the logic you're looking for. Everything's going naturally where it wants to be. Now the row will work if you get that wrong, but often you end up with crossed cables, and that's where stuff wears out then. Yeah, great stuff. Okay, good. So now we're at the halfway point. So we need to get the bracket, feed it through the bracket. Now, where we've got to get to is, can you see where that mark is there on the bungee?
Yeah.
Because we're using the old bungee, we can go back to that point. So that's where the bracket needs to be.
Yeah.
But if you're fitting a new bungee, you'd have to sort of do this a bit by trial and error. You might mean, after you've reassembled it, it might be you need to just change the position of that centre bracket. So we've actually got a little bit of pre-tension on this side now, which is good. And where the bungee is exiting through that hole, it's kind of telling us where it wants to go next, which is over there. And it's going to go under. These are brilliantly designed machines. I love all this sort of stuff where everything goes exactly where the designer wanted it to be, you know.
And then it's going to go
straight up there, yep, underneath everything.
In through the underneath, right underneath.
That, yeah. Then underneath the pulley at the far end. Back over the top, all the way back down.
And then onto this.
And then onto the bracket. And then hook the bracket on. However, we need to retension this. Yep. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop off about a foot or so. So if you chop off about that much with a pair of snips. Because originally on this machine, the whole reason why we're looking at this is because the bungee was a little bit slack and the chain was, it wasn't being retracted into the machine quickly enough. Can you see them?
Oh, there they are. Right in front of me, I just need to look. Right, so you want about...
So cut about a foot or so off, you know, something like that. That's it. Okay. And then reattach that to the bracket. Are you happy with it?
No. What sort of technique is this then?
Okay, so the bracket.
And that's got to go underneath.
Bracket we want to hook underneath because we want the flat side against.
Yeah.
The flat side against the flat of the machine. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could. Which way is it coming over the top? So the natural place would be for it to go in through the top one because that's where it wants to go. Then that little V there is to lock it, and then the end just will hook back round.
Ah, see, so that's just what
That's
it is.
it. That's it. Perfect. And then just hook that the end back through. Good. Yeah, that's it. That sort of thing. Now, if you want to, you know, we can cut off that excess as well. It's not really going to make a lot of difference. We want extra tension anyway. Okay, so that can hook back on. And if we're going to do this job properly, what we next need to do is just reposition the centre of that because we've chopped off where those two ends. Here's one. Where's that other end you've just chopped off? So we've just chopped off that much bungee, which means there's an imbalance of that much now between the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Yep. So to address that, we need to roughly move half of that on the bracket here, and it needs to move onto this side. So in other words, if you just pull that out, and then feed through that way, halfway. Roughly, you know, 100 mil, whatever, yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's it. That's fine. That'll do. So that's now should have given us an equal tension between that side and that side. It's close, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a bit more.
Yeah, I think a bit more too. That right? Yeah. Awesome. And if we look down it, hopefully it all looks parallel. Nothing's crossing over.
No.
And it's all back as it was, except better.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. Good. That's it.
Ideal.
Video over.